guys, what's up? In this video series, we are going to create Snag and Ladder game using JavaScript as requested by Simran Chauhan in the comment section. So let's get started. So in this video, we're just going to implement the grid and the player. The player will move in the fashion like in the original Snag and Ladder game. So let's get started. And I am using here a p5.js library. I'll link that down in the description. You can go there and download or copy the CDN. So first, let's make a class of grid. Classes makes every work easy. So we will pass in the constructor the number of boxes in the x direction and in the y direction. And then we will assign these parameters to the variables nx and ny such that we can use them in the draw function to draw the grid. So if you are not familiar on how to draw a grid, I have a complete video on that, on the logic how we draw a grid on the screen. So first you can go watch that video and then come back to this part and continue with the game. And for the grid, we will have two loops. One will go in the vertical direction, that is y, and the other one will go in the horizontal direction, that is x. So inside these loops, what we'll do is we'll create a rectangle. So for creating a rectangle, we need box width and box height. So let's create those variables. The box width is calculated as the complete width of the window divided by number of boxes we have. So dividing that will give us the box width, that is the width of one box. And similar thing we are going to do with the height. Now we just have to multiply box width with x and box height with y and set the rectangle's width and height to be box width and box height. Let's color this rectangle. Now in the game we can see the color is alternating like this. So to create that effect we need to switch on each color. So first will be green, then it will be white. And this pattern will alternate as we go on drawing the boxes. So for that I've created a variable is on. We will switch this variable true and false for the green and white color. In this fashion we will alternatively draw the boxes such that to. So let's have an if statement to check the is on variable. So if the variable comes out to be true, that means we need to fill in white color, that means fill 255, and then after filling the color we need to just switch the variable to false such that the next time when it draws it comes to the else part. And in the else part we'll fill in the greenish color 150 150 0, that's for the RGB, and then we will switch back the is on variable such that it can come to the white one the next time. So finally we can create an object of this grid class and we will declare this grid variable outside the functions and we will initialize this grid object inside the setup function. Parameters to this object, that means the boxes in the x and the boxes in the y, will be odd and the even. Why we did that I will explain it to you. Now let us call the draw function on the grid object and let's see how it works. So as you can see it's very tiny, so we forgot to set the size of the canvas, so let's do that. It's good now. So let's see why we have kept boxes in the x direction as odd and the y direction as even. So let's suppose that we are switching the is on variable for even number of time, like first it's true, then second time it's false. Now after the even cycle is completed it will return to its original position, that means the original color. So as we go up the rows, the color in one column will be similar, that means one column will be white, one column will be green. For having that checkbox effect we have kept the first parameter as odd. So as we are walking we will go first left to right and then we will go right to left. If it's even, at the end we will end up right to left as in the original Snag and Ladder game. So for that purpose we have kept the second parameter as even. Now let's create a player class. This player will have an x and y, that means the position of the player. We will change this according to our game and then we will draw it by using this x and y. We will draw the player similar to the boxes we were drawing in the draw function of the grid, that means creating a rectangle. Instead of rectangle we will create here a circle. So first we need to initialize nx and ny and we will pass this nx and ny into the grid instead of raw numbers. So first let's copy and paste this box height and box width from the grid's draw function and just paste that here and change the nx to be the global nx variable and ny variable. And also copy paste the rectangle's parameters. Exactly the same parameters will be here with few changes in the ellipse. So in rectangle we draw from the corner and in ellipse we draw from the center. So that's the change we need to do. So for that change we will add in the x and y half of the width and half of the height of the box such that we can reach the center of the box and then start drawing our circle or ellipse. And we don't want our circle to cover the entire box, so we will just multiply that by 0.7. That means the 70% of the box will be covered by our ellipse. And let's fill this circle with a red color, and let's create an object of the player like we did for the grid and initialize it in the setup function. The player constructor doesn't take any argument because initially the player is at 0 0 position. So after creating the object, we can call the draw function on it. Try and run that and hope for no errors. As you can see, I forgot this, so let's go and fix that. This dot x and this dot y. As you can see, the player is drawn at the 0 0th position. Now let's just make this ellipse a perfect circle. Now you might be thinking, why is the player beginning at the top position but in the original game it's at the bottom? Don't worry about it, we will fix that. Before that, let's implement the control of the player, that means taking step. Let's now just implement it to take one step at a time, and later on we can implement it to take random steps as decided by the dice. So for moving, the player will do one simple thing, will increment x until it reaches the end of the row. And if it reaches the end of the row, we'll just increment the y and then return the x to be the initial one, that means 0. In this way, the player will travel a row and then will come down to the next row, and in the later implementations we will shift the axis such that it will move up instead of down. So let's just have a condition: if this dot x is less than nx minus 1. Why minus 1? Because nx is the number of boxes and we need the index before which we can stop. And then we will simply increment the x. And else we will increment y by checking if the y is less than ny minus 1. So to call that take step function, we need to create a mouse pressed function. In the mouse press function, whenever the user clicks the mouse, this function will be called and the player will take one step. So inside the mouse player function, we'll call player dot take step such that the player takes a step on mouse click. And remember, when incrementing y, we need to reset x to 0, that means its original position, such that we are starting again on the next row. As you can see on click, the player is moving row by row and going down on completing one row. Let us now make the movement look more like the original snag and ladder. So let's invert the axis which we are moving. To do that, we need to create a switch variable such that we can switch the x to move left to right first and then move right to left second time. So by switching these two directions, we will have a player move up as the original game does. Let's have new variables draw x and draw y instead of directly passing in this dot x and this dot y. By using the isOn variable, we will set the draw x. So one time we will have it move usually from 0 to a number, and the other time when isOn is false, we will have it move from any number down to 0. That means from nx minus 1 to 0. So draw x will simply be this dot x. And in the else condition, we will have draw x equal to nx minus 1 minus this dot x. That means reverting the axis of movement. So if this dot x is 0, that means that draw x will be nx minus 1. If this dot x is 2, that means draw x will be 2 less than the nx minus 1. In simple words, moving right to left. And like we inverted the x-axis by doing nx minus 1 minus this dot x, we are gonna do the same to invert the y-axis. So draw y equal to ny minus 1 minus this dot y. And we are done. We have successfully inverted the y-axis. Now we just have to switch the isOn variable. We will do that in take step function. So the switching of this variable will make x go from left to right and then from right to left. So whenever we are resetting x to be 0, we just have to do this dot isOn is equal to not of this dot isOn. That will switch it from true to false or false to true. And now we can replace the this dot x and this dot y in ellipse to be draw x and draw y. And let's run this and see this. As you can see, it's originating from the bottom left part and then going to the right and going up. Then we switch the horizontal moving direction. Now it's moving from down to up, that means reversed y-axis. So this video was implementing players movement. In the next video we're gonna implement the snakes and the game mechanics like the scores and all. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to CodeSnack.